Welcome to the Meaning Code. We have a special guest today, Aaron Parnell, who is also known as the posture genius. You might be asking, why am I talking to someone about posture? But as you know, I really enjoy looking at how the patterns in one domain of knowledge or in one field of professional endeavor show up in other fields. And I have been noticing lately in my reading, especially reading about architecture, the work of Christopher Alexander, who talks about living buildings, and in philosophy, which I just picked up recently from one of John Vervaeke's episodes on Hegel, that there are a lot of parallel ideas. And so I want to share that with you today as we talk to Aaron Parnell. We'll get started in just a second. I'm really excited to be here today again with Aaron Parnell, who is the author of The Slouching Superhero's Guide to Great Posture. So Aaron, where can we buy your book?
You can buy my book on Amazon.com. If you go to The Slouching Superhero's Guide, you can also buy it from me here at my center at the Posture Genius Center in San Mateo. You can reach me on my email. Go to aaron@reposturing.com, AARON @reposturing, REPOSTURING.com.
Wow, that was good. And I'll put all that in the description notes too, for people who weren't taking notes or if they're listening to this while they're driving.
Alrighty.
So Aaron, you've been on before and you've told your whole life story, but just to catch up people who may not have heard that previous episode, why don't you tell us in just a little few words about how you grew up and what you think shaped your character?
I think one of the things that shaped my character is that, of course, you know, I have a praying mother and a praying grandmother, and I think my father is also a very praying man. He's actually a priest in one of the African religions. But I've always felt like God has a special eye right on me to make sure nothing happens to me. And I've been, you know, close to some dangerous points in my life, but somehow I just knew when I was headed down a dark street that I needed to go another way. And in terms of things that shaped me, my mother's father, my grandfather, before I knew him, of course, died at the age of 42 in a diabetic coma. And I decided that, so that was one thing. And then when I was growing up, my parents divorced. Mom moved to California and left the kids with my grandmother. And my grandmother seemed to always be sick with stress things, and she had ulcers, and she was taking a medicine cabinet full of pills. I said, something's wrong with this. People shouldn't have to take all these pills all the time. And I said, somehow when I grow up, I'm going to be something that's going to make sure that people don't have to live on these pills. Not that at that time I didn't know what was not right about it. I just said something, you know, why can't people just grow up and be able to play and have a good time like I was as a kid? Then I worked in a shoe store in high school. It was shoe concession inside of Mervyn's department store. And one day a little old lady came in and said, hey, it would sure be nice to have a foot massage. And me being, you know, courteous to my elders, I started giving foot massages, and that turned into, oh, that's so nice, son, I'll take 2 pair. And I got so much positive feedback from giving these foot massages to these little old ladies that I decided, well, maybe I could do something with my hands. Went to physical therapy. When I went to college, I became a physical therapy major, took all my academics, but concurrent to my academics, I took 5 modalities of massage: Swedish massage, shiatsu, Traeger, polarity therapy, and lomi. I took 5 modalities of massage and ancillary to my hard academics. Fast forward, went to chiropractic college instead of being a physical therapist. But while I was in chiropractic college, I started working with athletes from marathons, golf, tennis, skiing, and cycling. 2 years later, fast forward, I found out that they were putting a sports massage team together for the Los Angeles Olympics. And from there, I said, there were 2,000 people applying for 35 positions. And I made sure that my name was on top all the time. And magically, I was chosen to be one of the first Olympic sports massage therapists for the US Olympics in Los Angeles in 1984. I helped athletes so much, and it was really neat. In my job with the Olympics, unlike other jobs where sports medicine at the time was characterized by what to do to help an athlete after they were injured, my job on the sports massage team was to make sure that they didn't get injured at all. And they were able to increase and expand their top side performance and recovery time. I thought, okay, I really like doing this. By the end of the Olympics, I thought, okay, people are making personal records, people are setting world records, taking gold medals home. I thought, whatever this is, I really like doing this. And that's when I realized that there's no place in the world I can go get an education, a formal education with a degree and everything that would help me learn how to optimize human performance. I went back to school in the fall quarter, and I did a lot of praying. It took me about 6 months of praying and just dialoguing with God that I really want to help people get the best out of their bodies. And my formal education at the time was to become a chiropractic doctor, where people would be managing their pain or wait till something goes wrong with their bodies. And so I just felt a call. And then I remember characterizing it. I said, God, if I go this route with no formal education, it'll be like hacking my way through the bushes with a machete to get to the other side. And then, long story short, God said, here's your machete. Okay, so
no shortcuts, huh? You just have to do the work.
No path, no shortcuts. And that's when, so now wind the clock forward. Since then, I've written 4 books. I've written over 200 published articles. I've created a body of work that helps every branch of physical medicine. I've taught over 1,000 people how to do all or parts of what I do. I've actually created a category called posture optimization. And posture optimization embraces all the other definitions about posture, but it also embraces the fact that every activity we have has a perfect posture that goes with it. If you're sitting here at your desk, if you are standing playing golf, if you are on a horse, there's a specific posture that optimizes performance in that activity. But you don't want to be stuck doing that. And that's where posture optimized workouts come in. So if you have a specific lifestyle that makes your body start to form around that activity, you want to make sure that your body is flexible and strong enough to resort to being upright when you're standing and not in your activity. And so many of us, what happens for many of us is that we sit at our desk, and over time we just get shorter and shorter and shorter, and the shoulders roll farther forward and farther forward. And then 10 years into our career, we've got back pain we can't get out of because we spend most of our time sitting down all day. And we haven't done what we need to do to restore the natural flexibility to the front of our body and the natural strength to the back of our body. Or we've been doing something like we'll leave working at our desk, and then we'll do what I refer to as front-loaded workouts, where we strengthen the front of our bodies, bench presses, push-ups, crunches, leg lifts, and then we go back to work. So we're actually having counterproductive activity. So somebody's got to put a stop to this. There's so many things that attach to posture. There are over 50 health conditions related to poor posture, and we've discovered, especially in the wake of this pandemic, that the healthcare system can't make us healthy, and the government can't prevent us from being self-determinant about our health. We have to do something to stay in the game. We have to do something to make getting healthy and staying healthy our primary activity. So, I want to be one of those people who is part of the new health economy. I want to save the world. I want to help people, make healthy choices, or give people a healthy option. I mean, I could go on and on. Do you have a question?
Yes, I do. I do.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. It's great.
You're asking something I was very passionate about.
Yes, that's one of the things I love about you, is that you're very passionate about what you do, and you're not passionate without cause, because you have put in thousands and thousands and thousands of hours at discovering the methods that you use, and at helping people, and you have this passion for helping people. So that's all good. So what I wanted to do right now is introduce you to the work of an architect named Christopher Alexander.
I would love that.
Yeah, and I think I'm gonna share screen and bring this document up so that everybody can see the quote that I'm looking at. And where is it on my screen? Well, we'll try that and see if that works. Can you see this document?
Okay, living architecture has the potential to profoundly alter the way we relate to the planet and wider universe. Yeah. A building composed of what Alexander calls living centers literally opens a window to deeper layers of reality.
Okay, so we don't have to read the whole thing. I'm just going to buzz. I'm going to get an idea. I'm going to buzz down here to this highlighted part that's in blue. We feel living centers with our heart as we walk into sacred spaces. It is the feeling of being enveloped and sheltered by forms of order that amplify the quality of our existence.
Yep.
And then he goes on to say, in some sense, space is alive, even conscious, and its vitality depends upon the growth of certain organic patterns that human designers can recognize and recreate. Recognizing the reality of these patterns requires that we come to take our feelings seriously instead of rejecting them as merely subjective projections onto an otherwise valueless objective world. Now, what he's fighting against is the trend that in architecture that was responding to the mechanization of our world, the industrialization, the technologizing of our world, and moving away from the kinds of buildings that gave people a sense of beauty and comfort and glory. And so he wants to go back to that. He doesn't want to go back to the old architecture, but he wants to develop a new architecture that can recapture that sense of vitality and life that comes from recognizing these organic patterns. And I know that's one of the things that you do in your work. You actually work with the body instead of against it. I mean, pharmaceuticals tends to work against our bodies, right? But you work with the body. And one of the ways I wanted to approach this is a couple of weeks ago, I had on a philosopher, and she was talking about the sense of proprioception as being one of the senses that very rarely gets discussed. And I know proprioception is very important in your work. Yep. But the interesting thing to me was that somebody made a comment under that video, a dancer, a woman who's a ballet dancer, and she said, many people don't know this, but proprioception is the first sense that we develop when we're in the womb.
Interesting.
I didn't know if you knew that, but I know that proprioception is vitally important to posture, and I wondered if you could comment on that a little bit.
The body has a sense of in the health sciences, we refer to it as innate wisdom. And that is, even at the cellular level, the body has a sense of how it is, what is level, what is balanced, what is upright. And we, on the one hand, you can learn it, and it starts to develop it for kids more so after they're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. And like kids go through this gangly years where they're not quite sure what they're able to do. And that's the time when they should jump and run and climb on things, because that's how they develop their coordination and reinforce their proprioception. So I believe that in the way that if you have a shape, let's say a square, that square not only has lines and angles, but it also has an energy field around it. And we have the ability to sense that energy field. We have the ability to sense the relationship between our energy field and our physical structure in relation to other people. And so I believe that the sense of proprioception starts inside, and it's even it's woven into the fabric of our bones, our DNA, and we start to expand the sense of that with our family, with our home, with our community, with our neighborhood, and the places we go. So the quote from the architect I can definitely relate to, and the quote from the choreographer I can definitely relate to.
Well, and while you were just talking now, it came back to my mind that the reason I wrote these two verses up here. The first is from the New American Standard, Ephesians 4:16. It's talking about Christ is the head, and then it says, from whom the whole body, being fitted and held or knitted together by what every joint supplies, according to the proper working of each individual part, causes the growth of the body for the building up of itself in love.
Yes.
And,
oh, wow.
And then Colossians 2:19 says, there are some who have lost their connection to the head, because it is the head from whom the whole body, supported and knit together by its joints and ligaments, grows as God causes it to grow. And
wow, that's powerful, actually.
Yeah. So when you're talking, when you talk about how, when you work with the human body, you're working not just with the skeleton, and not just with the skeleton and the muscles, but you're working with all the fascia that hold everything together. And that's a really important part of getting the body to the place where it can heal itself. So would you like to talk a little bit about that? How you diagnose and how you separate all these parts so that you know what the problem is before you kind of put it all back together again?
Okay. So effectively, by the way, someone's going to come here and ask me where they put something that they left here at my office. So when they come in, I'm from where I am, I can see the reflection in the window. And so they're going to come in and I'll say, hey, at the front desk. So
okay, no problem.
Okay. I'm going to start with the fact that we have 637 muscles and 206 bones. And each one of these bones has a different size, shape, location, and function in the body. And God put this together, and it is indeed woven and knit together so that the bones do the work of weight bearing when they're in motion, and for the muscles to do them at the front desk. And so it's incumbent on us to observe how the bones are supposed to be put together, and what movement, what function, what maintenance will optimize their function, movement, and other abilities. So this is really, really an important concept to get. And it's a really important concept to get, that as a posture expert, my job is to make sure that your bones are optimized for the movement they're supposed to have. So when I teach my classes, I teach out of one of the books where this anatomist went through and measured with calipers and a curve I forgot that curve measuring device, but looked at every curve on every bone to see its optimum and maximum function, what its limitations are. And what I find is that there's a relationship between the fascia of the body and the bones. And my job as a posture optimization specialist is to make sure that the bones and the fascia have the right relationship, not only with each other, but also with gravity and movement. So gravity, movement, and self-expression. So if a person is supposed to be upright, I want to make sure that all the bones are arranged properly so that they can transfer gravity straight down and not through the soft tissues, but through the bones. I want to make sure that if a person is going to be sitting down, that their muscles get restored to their natural freedom and flexibility after they finish sitting down at their desk all day when they're working. Or if they're in a sport, we want to make sure that they're not stuck in the soccer playing position, or stuck in the, stuck in the fighting position if you're a martial artist. And so often, many of the challenges that athletes have, and we all have, is when our bodies get stuck. It's supposed to be dynamic. It's supposed to be malleable, and you can change it, and you can optimize for everything that's important to do. So for me, I go back to form influences function, but also function influences form. So if the bones are formed to have a certain size and shape and functionality, if you start using your body in a way that is not ideal for it, it will start to mold. However, you do that with a consequence very often. And those consequences sometimes lead to dis-ease or malfunction. The bones don't do the job they're supposed to do. And so the muscles have to work extra hard to not fall or not compress on the body's natural functions. So we could go all over we can go into this very deeply if you want.
Yeah, I do, because I want to approach it from a slightly different perspective, but taking that idea of form influences function and function influences form. Mm-hmm. When this philosopher is talking, or this professor of actually cognitive neuroscience is talking about the philosopher Hegel. He's talking about, he brings up an example of human development or child development, where when a child first begins exploring the world, they are trying things out, see what fits, see what, do you need to talk to somebody?
No, I just was, I wanted to, the voice, your voice to amplify a little bit more.
Okay. So the child is reaching out, trying to figure out how the world works. Like you said, when they're little, they're playing, they're jumping, they're running, they're trying to get their body optimized. Mm-hmm. And in the same way, they're trying out a lot of things to see where reality is. And they might start out with a map that's incomplete or erroneous. But as time goes on and they are trying things out in the world, they find out what works and what fits for them. And then they get feedback from that, and that changes their map a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then they start trying out new things and different things. Well, sometimes the feedback that they get might be wrong feedback. And that's where, I mean, as you mentioned to me one time before, that women very often will become hunch-shouldered because they get the feedback that they shouldn't be showing their full bodies by having their shoulders back. And so a lot of women have problems with this kind of postural thing, because they're operating in an erroneous reality because they're getting the wrong kind of feedback. But I just want to play this little bit from this cognitive neuroscience, because I think you'll get a kick out of how much it lines up with what you're thinking.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, and it's right here.
We can act in a meaningful manner and understand ourselves, the world, and each other. And what you discover, Hegel said, is if you look at this history, you see it's not static. You can see that it is going through a developmental process, and that development is driven by sort of two opposing movements or forces. One is a process of differentiation. So think about when you're trying to make sense. What do you have to do often, right? You have to grasp the differences between things. You have to distinguish. You have to clarify. You have to contrast. So a good way of thinking about this is this term we used, articulation. Articulation means to speak and to make sense, but it also means to find all the joints, find the division points between things. So part of what we're doing, right, is when we're trying to make sense, we're engaging in a process of differentiation, articulation. But of course, we also are doing the other, right? We are doing integration. Right? We are gathering things together so that we have systematic connections are being realized. Again, we're becoming aware of them, but we're also constituting them and making them. And again, not as individuals, but as participants, right, in this project of how the patterns of intelligibility are working themselves out through our thought, through our behavior, through our ways of living and being in the world. So, Hegel understands the process of understanding as the creation of a system, a systematization. Because when I'm doing this, when I'm differentiating things and also integrating them together, I'm putting them into a systematic relationship. And so let me give you an analogy, right, for understanding Hegel. Please remember it's an analogy. So when you study child development, you can see children have ways of making sense of the world, and that discloses the world to them in a certain way, and that way in which they make sense works for them. It gives them a certain understanding. But what happens as you go through stages of development is that that system gets incredibly improved. Things that were often confused together get differentiated apart and then get reintegrated so that you get a more sophisticated systematic understanding of the world. And again, when I say this understanding, you have to understand that it means, right, not just in your head, but how the world is structured for you.
So I'm going to stop there because I especially like the way he ended there, how the world is structured together.
For you is how he ended it, how it's structured for you. Do you have a question?
Because what I think about when I think about the things you've taught me in the past is that just as there is a way that reality is, and we have to learn to live with reality the way it is, there is a way that the body is supposed to be, right? And we have to learn to inhabit our bodies in the best possible way. And I think that's what you're all about.
Yes, I am all about that. And then there is a kind of fluidity you have, or that you can achieve when your body is flexible and dynamic enough to be able to respond to the changes in your environment. I'll give you an example. My wife is from the Philippines, and she, when I talk about the postural or the construct of how people carry their bodies, as in the different variegations of the socioeconomics and demographics, people who are at the top, people who are the general, the president, the chief, the man in charge, it's okay for them to carry their bodies upright and confident. they walk in and people automatically know who they are by how they carry their bodies. And as a sign of respect, everybody else sort of carries their body down a little bit lower. They don't make eye contact with people they perceive as being authority figures. They don't pull their shoulders back. They put their shoulders forward, and they sublimate their natural sense of self or self-expression. And it works in that environment. And there are many environments. She just happens to be from the Philippines, and I see it in other cultures and other communities as well. And so when you take a person out of their family of origin, so you take a person out of their community of origin or their country of origin and put them in a different place, the new place they occupy may make space for them to be much bigger, much more pronounced in their identity. If the person still stays in the same configuration they were in before they changed locations, then there's a mismatch. And when this fine gentleman talked about differentiation and articulation, the person, it's incumbent on the person to differentiate that they're in a different location and it's okay to carry their bodies in a different way. But it's
so does that work the other way too, that if you take somebody who has been all kind of inward and forward and twisted up because of poor posture and poor attitude in the past, and then you retrain their posture, do they change from the inside? Yes, they do.
And it's one of those forms that dictates function. So what happens very often, we'll have a person come in and how they felt about their bodies before they started working with us here at the Posture Genius Club in San Mateo in the middle of Silicon Valley, is that they'll say, hey, I wasn't that confident. I didn't feel like it was my place to speak up, or it wasn't my place to take action. It wasn't my place to be that involved. And then they start to open their bodies up, and without even trying to plan for this to occur, they start saying, hey, I feel more confident. I think I will raise my hand at that meeting today. I had one time, I met a lady who started working with me, and she changed her name. She changed her profession. She opened up a law practice. All these things became possible for her as a result of changing her body into a new configuration that was different from effectively the social agreement she had with her community of origin or her family of origin. And so improving your posture is also opening the door to you being the person you're meant to be. God designed our bodies, and if we step into and idealizing the form and function of our body, not just in the structural sense, but also in the emotional sense and also in the psychic sense, we can step into our destiny, step into our calling. And if we carry our bodies like, gee, I'm not worthy, gee, I'm uncomfortable, you don't get chosen. You don't get called. You might be called, but you might not answer because you might not feel confident enough to answer. So all these things play a role, not just at the structural level, but at the cellular, emotional, psychic, spiritual, and I can't make claims about it. That will definitely happen for everybody. They may walk out and say, gee, I'm no longer in pain, or gee, whatever that thing was that 10 doctors have worked on, now it's gone altogether. I see it, and then their bodies change, and then their life changes, and they You know, so
Yeah, and of course, I mean, I realize it requires a commitment on the part of the client to stick with it, because
Mhm.
it's not easy. All good things are challenging, and it's not easy for you, and it's not easy for them. Um, but the reward, the payoffs are great.
Not always. I want to quote this particular thing well, you lived in the South before, and you've heard many of the stories of when what happens when Black soldiers come from the military. We're in World War II, and they're standing, upright. They fought for this country, and they get off the Greyhound bus. They have great posture. They look someone in the Jim Crow South in the eyes, and then the community hasn't changed. The person changed, and they brought their changed person back into that community where there was no agreement for them to be upright, be confident, be assertive, and be comfortable in who they are when they're standing up for themselves and willing to stand up for themselves. And very often the outcomes for them were very, very bad. And so it's important to have a sense of fluidity. When I'm here at my job, I'm the boss. I own my building, and I have employees. I have tenants. But when I go home to my mom, I'm her son. I'm not anybody's boss at my mom's house. And so it's important to have a sense of fluidity wherever you are in society. And if you don't have that fluidity and your ego gets in the way, what winds up happening is conversations like someone who's made it to the top of the food chain in their community or their business. They go into places, they may go into a fast food restaurant, and maybe the service isn't as fast as they're used to having it. And then they say, "Don't you know who I am?" It's because that person, so the person who feels a need to say that isn't fluid. They don't know how to be a regular person like the person who is serving them. And so it's important not just to have great posture, it's also important to have fluidity, not just in your ego, but also in your body as well. So
one of the ways Paul Vanderklay, with a lot of people who view this channel will be familiar with Paul Vanderklay and his teaching. One of the ways he talks about that is what he calls the agent arena relationship. Because in your office, you're the boss, and the office is your arena. And with your clients, you're the helper, and your client is the one who's receiving all the benefits of your help. And so in that sense, your little treatment room is that arena. At home, you're the husband, and that's a different arena.
It's a partnership, yes.
Yeah, and when you're with mama, you're the son. Mama's always right. So
yes, Mom.
That's a different arena. And so your role as agent has to adjust to the arena that you're in, right? And it's the same issue with context. I noticed earlier you were talking about right down to the cellular level. And that really caught my ear, because I've been studying quite a lot lately the work of a guy by the name of Michael Levin. He's I can't remember exactly what his role is, but he works in cognitive science and consciousness, and he works in cellular biology, microbiology. And he's discovered that one of the things about DNA that maybe not everybody knows is that while DNA has all the information in it on how to build proteins and how and what our genetic markers are in who we eventually become, the DNA does not have the information in it that tells our body how to grow. Once the cells start differentiating, they don't know where to go based on DNA. But he has discovered that within the cells, within the communities of cells, there is a kind of bioelectric signaling language where the cells talk to each other and they communicate. You batch go over there and build an eye. You guys go over there and build an ear. You guys go over there and build a shoulder. And so they tell each other where they're supposed to go and differentiate and to become different parts of the body. And I think that's just so cool at the cellular level that kind of thing is happening, which says to me that language goes all the way down and all the way up. So maybe language is one of the things that is previous to everything else, which totally makes sense, because in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Word was in the beginning with God. So the word or language is primary. And
I think there's at the cellular level, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, that's okay.
You gave me a good idea, and that is at the cellular level, the cells and the atoms, there's an electrochemical dialogue that happens, and somehow they have the brain and the nervous system and other cells in the body have an innate consciousness. And like you say, okay, it's time to differentiate. We're going to go through this process called a mitosis, where one cell becomes two, and then two become four, and so on. So we wind up with over several trillion cells by the time we're done, and then some of them keep replicating themselves. At the cellular and atomic level, there's an electronic signal that helps that differentiation happen. And I want to go back to the cell reflects the person or the structure, and the structure vibrates at a certain frequency just like the cell does. And it's all in a in a compatible energy field. Then if you walk into if I walk into a space, my cells have an electric energy field inside of me, and I vibrate at a certain frequency. If you look at one of those Carillion photos of me, you could see how the different energy field radiates from inside my body. If I walk into a space, like even whether it's a parking lot or a church, that space also has an energy field that sound vibrates off of, light vibrates from, and the compatibility of myself and the energy field of the space I'm walking in has me attract myself. I'm attracted into that environment. I want to stay a little bit longer. And where architecture and engineering express themselves at the pinnacle of their abilities is when the space makes you feel a certain way that you want to feel. The space makes you feel like you're connected to God in a more cohesive way. You're connected to the divine source in a cohesive way. And, like for myself, I like to go out in nature, and I write. I know you have a studio, and there's a vibe in there that makes you want to paint or create. Other people, they may want to sculpt, they may want to write poetry, and they may want to dance or do some other kind of expression. That expression is a sense of the divine coming out of them, making a connection with the nature or the space, and somehow being in there for a certain amount of time makes a transformation. It's almost like when you sing and I sing a different note, but we're in harmony with each other. And it's the harmony that we're going for. And when we have that harmony between mind, body, and spirit, and structure, and expression, and energy fields, then the life works. We have the ability to, I bring out the best in you, you bring out the best in me. And somehow the space that we meet in brings out the best in both of us, and we both walk away more whole. When people's bodies become disorganized, or instead of an upright body, you wind up having a body that's collapsing on itself, it can't transmit energy through it efficiently. And so what winds up happening is the energy still goes through it, only it's used on itself, almost like in combat or as an enemy. I'll give you an example. Under ideal circumstances, when the shoulders are back far enough, the rib cage opens up. And because the rib cage is open, you get a full expansion of your rib cage and the lungs get fully expanded. This also helps the heart pump itself with more freedom and less energy. If my shoulders go forward and compress the capacity of my rib cage and compress the energy, the weight of force on my heart has to work harder. My blood pressure goes up. And because my blood pressure goes up, plus my head goes forward with head forward posture, then I have to use the extra pressure that the heart uses to get blood circulating into the brain may someday cause brain malfunction. And there's a whole myriad of things that could possibly go wrong, not just in the brain, not just in the heart, not just in the rest of the body, but there's a structure, there's a physiology, and there is the bridge that gets created between the natural function of the upright and open body that is flexible and the pumping of the immune system. If the immune system is compressed on itself because the body is compressed on itself, it can't keep you healthy with the same amount of strength. So we have what in medicine they call comorbidities, and we gain weight, we feel unhappy, we feel less confident, and many other things go wrong when the structure, when the nature of the structure tends to compress on itself or degrade or collapse on itself. So posture optimization helps to open the body so that it can do what it's meant to do. Flexibility enables us to the ability to be fluid when we change environments or change location. You know, when I'm a boss at work, when I have a certain stature and people respond to me in a certain way. But when I go home and I'm grandpa, so my 3-year-old grandson, I'm his role model. He looks up to me and he wants to play and run around and play cars and stuff like that. I don't maintain the same posture. I don't walk in and say, "Do you know who I am? I'm your grandfather." He's like, "No, this is your father." So so I'm able to modify and reframe the relationships that I have. Because my body is flexible, my mind is flexible. My mind is flexible, my spirit is flexible. All the time, God's energy flows through me. So I think there's a point to be made about the I don't know what the verse is. It says no.
Well, I was just gonna look at that again. Let's look at it again, because I think it fits in right here.
Okay.
Now, what did I do with it? Oh, it's on pages. Here we go. And of course, it's the wrong document. Never fails. There it is. So, from whom the whole body, being fitted and knitted together by what every joint supplies, according to the proper working of each individual part, causes the growth of the body, and here's the key part, for the building up of itself in love.
Yes.
Now, what does love mean to you, Aaron?
Wow. I have a definition. The simple answer is my connectedness with you that makes me more whole and makes you more whole at the same time. So that's my simple answer with love. So yes, I love my wife. I love my children and my stepchildren. I inherited my wife's kids. I love my mom. And so, you know, in the way that I have a good relationship with them, I love them as well. At the same time, I think there's a triumvirate of not just compatibility, but also affinity. And that is love, devotion, and partnership. I'm in your life to make you a better person for your own sake. Not so that you can be better for me, but be better for you and be better able to express the contribution in the world that God means for you. It might not benefit me at all, but I'm in partnership for you for your sake. And so there's a partnership when there is love. And there's devotion as well, where, you know, once you put me on your health team, I'm on your health team. So I'm going to call you up and say, how you doing? Hey, what are you doing these days? Because I'm devoted to you being the healthiest you. I know what it's like to have an unhealthy family member or spouse or child or sibling, you know, who becomes a burden to themselves and their family. And I also know what it's like to see when a family has healthy family members all around, and because of that, they can go and have a good time on trips. They can experience pleasure and do fun things together because, you know, grandpa's healthy, grandma's healthy, and because the grandparents are healthy, they're able to have more rewarding times with their grandchildren, and in that relationship, legacies get passed on from generation to generation. Life lessons and wisdom get passed on from generation to generation. That's not possible if grandpa and grandma are not healthy. That's not possible if somebody had to stop working early in life because they were ill or injured. It's not possible if the family dynamic is not productive. And so for me, love, devotion, and partnership are part of a triangle of connection. So there you go. There you have it. That's my story.
So one of the reasons I asked you, I get a Monday newsletter every week from Jordan Peterson. And this week, one of the things that he said is, love is the desire to see unnecessary suffering ameliorated.
There you go.
That made me think of you, because that's what you do. Your whole life is about ameliorating unnecessary suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's also an act of love then to take care of oneself, because if you take care of yourself, then you're not making yourself a burden on other people. You're making it possible for yourself to be a support and an encouragement to other people. And that's a lot of what Jordan Peterson teaches too, right? Clean up your own room, take care of yourself, your own body, learn to grow, learn to be helpful to others, learn to be the stalwart, strong person at a family funeral when people are looking to someone who can be a strength for them.
Yeah.
And when I think about that kind of thing, I always think about you, because you are that kind of a guy. So
thank you so much. You're very kind. You know, I just wake up, it's like, who can I help? And when I pray at night with my wife, we just thank God for the privilege to serve His other children in the world. And you know, if there's somebody who is out there and wants to discover what it's like to be fully actualized, fully expressive, and living into the destiny that God has laid out for them, in the best of health, for themselves, their family, and their community, and their work. I want to help.
Well, so for the people who don't live in California and don't have access to the Posture Genius Club in San Mateo, California, are there places in the country where there are people who've been trained in your techniques?
Not yet, and we're working on it. In the meantime, so there's a lady up near Seattle, Washington, and that's Michelle Joyce. She's done some good work. I'm not sure how much hands-on practice she has, but she has a wonderful YouTube channel called Posture Makeover. And if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see Posture Genius. So you can follow me with exercises there. And if you not only follow me, but ask questions, DM me. I'm learning this.
Learning the lingo, huh?
DM me. So I'm on Facebook, on YouTube, Instagram, as my primary places you can reach me. But feel free to reach out to me, Aaron at Reposturing, and find out how I might be able to help. Here at my center in Silicon Valley, maybe you can't get to it, but I also have online consultations. So a person can call me up and say, I'd like to work with you. We'll do a transaction right on the website. And then I'll look at your body, and how I work, where I watch you walk. And because form and function are related to each other, where I see limitations, I couple the movement limitations with the concerns that you have with your back or your neck or whatever you have. And I'll come up with an exercise plan that will be therapeutic for you to achieve your health and wellness goals. So it's you're not stuck only receiving hands-on treatment. And I'm creating workouts, posture optimized workouts every day.
That's so great. Aaron, I thank you so much. In the midst of your busy day and your busy schedule, I thank you so much for taking time to talk to us. And I give my best to the family and all the people there at the clinic. And yeah, have a great day.
It's a privilege. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right.